everybody. Welcome back to the show. A couple of big meetings that are coming up this week in Terrebonne Parish, and here to talk about it is Chris Pulaski, the Terrebonne Parish Planning and Zoning Director. So one on East Houma on Wednesday and one in the main library on Thursday, March 1st and 2nd. So tell us about these meetings and what are you guys trying to accomplish here?
Well, the meeting Wednesday, March 1st at the East Branch of the library on Grand Caillou Road will be to solicit public input on our recovery projects from Hurricane Ida. Now, these are mostly critical facility type projects. So I know we had done a series of meetings around the parish, and we talked a lot about housing and economic development and quality of life, and all of that's very important. And we are working on those types of plans and projects, putting those together for future public presentations as well. But this meeting on the 1st is specific to a particular source of funding, which is the FEMA Flood Mitigation Assistance and the BRIC, the Building Resilient Infrastructure Community project. So it's going to be more about critical facilities and stuff. So
Okay,
we have some slides to go through. So this, of course, is the date and time and location, Wednesday, March 1st from 5:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. at the East Houma Branch Library on Grand Caillou Road. Again, like I mentioned, we're going to be talking about critical facilities funded mainly through FEMA, the FMA program, and through the BRIC program, and some hazard mitigation money. We will be doing other meetings in the future about housing, economic development, recreation, quality of life, that sort of stuff. A lot of that's funded through other funding sources like the community development block grants. The next slide. These are some of the specific projects that are being presented. I know that's a lot of words, but don't worry, folks in TV land, I got pictures too. So, Justice Complex downtown, safe rooms, we've got some pump stations, and we've got some other projects. So, well, can we go back to the next, that one? Okay, that's the annex, right? So everybody's familiar with that structure. The annex is really showing its age. So what we're looking at is to build a replacement justice complex. It will not be at that same location. We're looking at the property across the street where the DA's parking lot is, that block. We will not be tearing down the old courthouse. This is not intended to replace the old courthouse. That is a historic building. It's beautiful. We never want to see that go. But the annex has some issues. It was not really well designed to function as a courthouse, believe it or not. But we've been working with the judges, the clerk of court's office, with the sheriff's office, and with the DA's office on how we can make improvements to that facility, to that complex, and we'll see what happens through the course of the project to the actual annex itself. But for this project, we're looking at the block across the street. And like it said, we were also could double as a shelter. And, whether our hazards are hurricane or anything else, this site would also include a safe room for first responders and emergency personnel. A lot of folks are up in Gray at our main emergency operations center, but that doesn't mean that's the only place where we have people and need people. Sure. So it's good to have locations throughout the parish, safe locations, so that when it's safe to go outside, they can and address those issues. So that justice complex could also serve as a safe house and a shelter for like a tornado. You've got lots of businesses, you got a church and a school across the street, so there's a lot of people that in a moment's notice could be utilizing that building. And look, the old annex was a bomb shelter, a nuclear bomb shelter, right? It says it on there. So we can go to some of the other slides real quick. I know we don't have a whole lot of time. Safe rooms, we can stay on this one for a bit because we're looking at a number of safe rooms. This one is off of Plant Road behind the fire station on the east side, but that is a Cat 5 rated building. The fire department and other first responders use that in all kinds of instances, obviously during a hurricane. So we're looking at putting in safe rooms in a number of locations, and for not just fire department and first responders, but for the levee district and their personnel, because they've got to get out there and maintain those systems really quickly. Public Works, their folks who manage all the parish's drainage systems, they all need safe places to ride out the storms. Some of the other projects that we're going to be doing, let's go to the next slide after that. Yep, there you go. Company Canal, Miter Gate. We can run through these real quick. What's the next one? Is Grand Caillou Pump Station. This is the pump water out over into the Lake Boudreaux area. Keep going. Houma Heights Drainage. Houma Heights is the subdivision just on the other side of the intercoastal on the east side, from the twin spans going back towards East Tunnel Boulevard. They're having some drainage issues in that subdivision, so we're looking at improving some of those. And then we have a couple of other projects that are going to be discussed, but we have to touch and present all of those projects in order to get credit for the public meeting that the FMA and the BRIC funding use.
And this will be on Grand Caillou Road.
Right.
At the library on Grand
The
Caillou
East Houma Branch Library, yep.
So the time is 5 o'clock?
From 5:30 to 6:30
6:30.
p.m. on Wednesday, March 1st.
And then we're going to take a quick break, but then there's another meeting on Thursday, which will be at the main library over by the Civic Center.
Correct.
And same kind of deal, but a different meeting altogether.
It's a different meeting. I mean, some of the projects and strategies discussed may overlap, but it's not specific to one source of funding. It's more specific to a particular plan type.
Another meeting that will happen on March 2nd. This will be Thursday night. This one will be at the main library. The time is?
It's from 5:30 to 7.
Okay, and this one is about the FEMA flood mitigation assistance.
No, this one is the hazard mitigation
sorry,
plan
that's-
update.
Right.
So the hazard mitigation plan is a plan that we update on every 3 to 5 years.
Right.
And it's just basically what it does is identifies where our weakest points are, and then we identify projects or programs or whatever it is that's necessary to fix that and make us stronger as a community. So whether it's identifying, okay, well, we have certain critical facilities like, say, pump stations that need generators or any of those kinds of things, those are the types of projects that would go into hazard mitigation.
Right.
We're identifying the hazards and then mitigating them.
All right, so we have some slides, and we'll start off at, first of all, where it's at. So it'll be at the main library.
That's right. Also, that one is going to be broadcast via Zoom. But it's March 2nd, Thursday, March 2nd, from 5:30 to 7 at the main library.
Okay, so, and then this will kind of explain what you're going to do, right?
Correct. So like I was mentioning earlier, hazard mitigation, what we're doing is we're taking actions to reduce our risks. And so, but, we have to find out what those risks are and identify them. And oftentimes our risks are from natural hazards. So we're talking about not just hurricanes and flooding or wind. I mean, we have, fire, all kinds
Earthquake.
I mean,
Tornadoes recently.
Tornadoes, yes. Even extreme hot and cold temperatures. I mean, we just had that freeze
Right.
back in
Texas
December.
obviously was really mauled by that last year.
Yeah, so that too is a type of hazard that we need to mitigate risks for.
Right. So as we continue with those slides, this is some of the other things that you're doing, right?
Correct. So, I mean, through that process, I mean, it's not just something that me and my staff and administration and the council work in a bubble on. I mean, we're bringing in partnerships or bringing in other organizations and entities. There's another slide. I think this talks about our process. But first, we organize, everyone involved in this. Then we start. Number 2 is assessing our risks. Number 3 is developing a strategy to mitigate those risks. And then number 4 is actual implementation of it. And so the implementation side of it are the projects that we talked about in the first segment and projects that are identified in this plan that might be for the future.
I see. So, so this is a good way to kind of do some of those things.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those, we see it all the time. You're never going to get a project built if you don't have a plan. You can talk about it and wave your arms all day long, but until you have a plan, it's hard to move forward. And oftentimes our projects require federal funding, and you're not going to get a nickel of it if you don't have, if your community doesn't have a hazard mitigation plan. That's one of the first things. Show us your hazard mitigation plan. Here you go. So we update it every 3 to 5 years.
Right. So you want community input, right? So
That's right.
anybody's eligible to go there? Or,
Yes.
Or does it have to be somebody that's plugged in and knows what they're doing?
No, the last slide that was up was our steering committee.
The number of people, right. It's
Yeah,
the
you
number.
can see, and
Right.
that's just a sample. But at some point, I mean, these folks help us develop a draft. Again, just if we invited the general public and didn't have anything to present,
Right.
it would just be 2.5 hours
People
of
talking.
people yelling. But
Yeah, my ditch was bad.
right, but if we have a draft, we can talk to something. So that's what is being presented Thursday night at the main library from 5:30 to 7 p.m.
Yeah, and I guess that's the last slide, and it'll show again the information on how you.
Yeah, and because, yeah, and I'm sorry, yeah. So these are some of the actions that we typically see coming out of those plans. We sometimes we develop new regulations to address and mitigate. Sometimes it's projects themselves. Sometimes it's just public education and awareness, and then sometimes it's the natural systems protection, which is like marsh creation and things like that. But yeah, the last slide is important too, because that's the phone number at the bottom right of the screen for the RAMP division, the Recovery Assistance and Mitigation Planning Division, 873-6565. And this public meeting tomorrow, Thursday night, is not the public's only opportunity to comment. If you call that number, you can get more information. They'll direct you to where you can see the draft, and then you have more opportunities to comment.
Yeah, and it's big, as we're talking about some of the things you don't think of that are now happening, right? And whether it's changing or just, talking about whether it freezes, tornadoes that are now hitting in New Orleans that
Right.
bounce right over us a lot of times. You can use these buildings for multi-purpose things too.
That's right. In the first segment, for the Justice Complex, we talked about, the ability to, so I don't want to say double dip,
Right.
but it's
Yeah,
to
sure.
designate that structure. Okay, during the normal course of the year, this is its function, but in an emergency situation, it can function as
Everything
a shelter.
should be multi-purpose like that,
Right.
right?
I mean, whether it's a tornado or, if there's, God forbid, some sort of, active shooter type of situation. I mean, there's all kinds of hazards out there these days. And so, and everything costs so much, the more funding we can pull from different sources, the better.
Yeah, hey, look, I went to the Superdome during Hurricane George, and, I usually go to the Saints games there, but
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was multi-purpose until 2005. Anyway, Chris, we appreciate it, man. And so a
Sure.
couple of meetings to catch up on things for sure. We'll be right back with Bite Time right after this.